right. Just a moment, because I want to call my husband when he's back, because I will move to another space if, yeah. Ало, Пипи, здрасти. Ти кога ще се връщаш, защото аз ти ползвам мястото? Ало, чуваш ли ме? Да. Ти кога се връщаш, защото исках да ти ползвам мястото за една среща, за едно интервю? Добре, супер. Добре, мерси. Ще се опитам, да. Добре. По-скоро ще мога. Но по-добре тя, може би, да. Добре. Кажи, да.
So that was that in was that Ukrainian or
no, I'm such a mix. No, I live in Bulgaria. Yeah, I live in Bulgaria.
Bulgarian, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we talk Russian in between ourselves because some people don't speak Ukrainian like me. And yeah, I am half Ukrainian, but I only spend my summers in Ukraine, so I like recognize the language, but speaking it is a difficulty.
Okay, well, yeah. I guess we can leave that in there. I think it's quite a nice start. Unless you have anything against it. I think it's nice to like hear the language, you know. It's like I mean, that's what it's all. That's kind of what the whole thing. Well, not the whole thing, but part of what we're doing with this first class thing is the fact that it's Ukrainian and Russian and German and English.
Yeah.
Mainly English and Ukrainian, but we've got the mantras in German and we have translation in Russian. Is that correct? Is that what, when you see in the chat, you have some people are translating from Ukrainian into Russian?
We translate the mantras in both Russian and Ukrainian. So mostly, yeah, because you have the sound in the different languages, then we don't need the translation as such. And then the rest of the class is conducted in, just Russian, English, yeah. The two languages that everyone can understand. So only the mantras and the class, the text of the class.
So, and you were saying at the beginning, you're Bulgarian, you're from Sofia.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But do you live in Kiev?
No, I'm it's a big mix. So I was born in Moldova. And my parents are a Bulgarian and a Ukrainian who have met in Moldova. So I grew up there. I spent my summers in Ukraine. And then when I finished my high school, I moved to Bulgaria to study. And I lived here ever since. I live in Bulgaria more than I have lived in Moldova. Well, Ukraine, I only spent my summers, as I said. So I still keep family there. We, continue keeping in touch. Of course, now they had to move to Poland. Some are still in Ukraine, but some are in Poland because, my cousin's wife was just pregnant when the invasion happened, and she was in the 7th month, I think. And they were thinking, it will go away. But then, she had to give birth, and then she went to Poland, and they had to move.
So when you see when we get the invite for the first class, the lessons, or for the Zoom link, and it says Kiev time, is that because most of the other people are in Kiev?
It's Ukrainian time zone. We have I think there was one person from Kiev, but mostly they're not from Kiev. They're from the south of the country, from the middle of the country. and a little bit to where the war zone is from Dnepropetrovsk or Dnieper. This is the river, the big river there, and it's just neighboring the regions where the invasion has, the hottest part of the territories where the invasion is.
So I really hope that we can get to speak to some, or other people can introduce themselves in the group. Absolutely. And that we can get to know some of the other people in the group. And I think this is very interesting to also for us, because we always just hear very much from the mainstream media what is going on. And I know here in Rheinfelden, I think we have quite a few hundred Ukrainians, and that is in a city of only 5,000. So there's quite a sizable number of Ukrainians in the city here. And of course, they're going about their daily lives. So I think it's very interesting to hear people's stories. So are there many? Are there some people in the group who have been directly affected?
We currently we don't have people from the war zones, but we have people who are housing people from war zones, or who have. We have one person who has moved before the hostilities from the very east parts of Ukraine. But they did that a couple of years ago, and they have already kind of grown roots in more southern, western part of the country. Of course, we are all affected because there's rockets flying, the electricity is going out, there might be not water, and when the electricity turns off, then the internet turns off, and then the mobile towers for cell connection go off. So we kind of know that in half an hour, it means that there will be no internet for these participants who are, you can be in any region of Ukraine, and this will affect you.
It's an interesting time to be starting a global initiative for the First Class, or for anthroposophy.
Yes, because it's very, very, very much awakening, because you know that you have not got a lot of time. You know that this is your last chance to wake up, and you ask questions all the time. Your whole day goes under a question mark of, why is this happening? What can I do to change? What is wrong with the world that these things are happening? And then gradually unraveling all these questions. It's now has been 1 year since the war started. And we kind of there was a pre-sentiment that something is going to happen, because we were doing very significant work during the 12 holy nights of the new year, just before the invasion. And then it was it was very, very deep spiritual work, and we were wondering, why is this space so strong? So there was strong presence of spiritual beings. We felt the connection. We had very deep answers being revealed to us, and we were working in a very intense fashion. So from 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. until 3-4 during the day, we were soaking with the forces of each sign of zodiac, with the forces of higher hierarchies, which correspond to the different signs of zodiacs and so forth. So all of these elements, all of these spiritual beings, as though they were coming closer to us, and we were presenting that something unusual is going on. 2 months later, this war broke off. And then we realized that what we need to do is that we are like on a Titanic that is just going down, and you know that until the last hours of the crash, the orchestra was playing. So we felt like this is what is going on. People, checking Facebook or going to the supermarkets, being consumerist like they are, and the Titanic is going down. It's just the world is crashing. Everything that we knew, everything that was learned from the first two wars, now is the third war coming if we keep doing what we are doing.
It's interesting because Rudolf Steiner said back in the time of the First World War that certain spiritual work wasn't possible because of the war going on around. And I'm not saying that's that has to relate to now, but it's interesting, this question, isn't it, that like, can one do spiritual work in a time when there's such conflict and chaos around? I mean, there's the practical side with, okay, the surroundings perhaps collapsing and things like this, but there's also the spiritual aspect of the dead and the kind of astral atmosphere that is around you. Is that how would you answer that?
Well, the first Goetheanum was erected during the First World War. So I guess, such mobilization was only possible under extreme circumstances. And I kind of feel this parallel that, the first Goetheanum has burned. The second Goetheanum is not fulfilling its mission, at least as how I see things. And what is left is for every one of us as Michaelites, as anthroposophists, to take responsibility in your own hands and to do what depends on us, and a lot depends on us. That's what we.
Is that a feeling that a lot of you have? The second Goetheanum, or the Anthroposophical Society as it exists in Dornach, is somehow not fulfilling its task, or certainly that you don't feel that that's the direction you wish to take, or you'd like to take more initiative yourself? And when I say you, I guess I'm also saying myself, because of course I'm connected to you guys. So, but in terms of putting the question to you, is that something that unites a lot of you out there? Because I find that fascinating, because there's certainly I know that there's many people within anthroposophy who feel that the official way that anthroposophy seems to be presented leaves people with a lot of questions and a wish to do something new, but they find often that that they can't. They have questions about how really new it is there in the official center. And certainly these are questions not coming from me or us right now. These are questions that have been carried through the last 100 years. There's been this ongoing question about how one can continue spiritual work after the passing of Rudolf Steiner, but also how anthroposophy should look now for the 21st century.
Well, my understanding is that what Rudolf Steiner bequeathed on us is that in 100 years, the anthroposophy should culminate, or the entire human race will be erased. And do we have the culmination of anthroposophy today? How many anthroposophists do you know? Does everyone on the street you meet and ask, do you know what is anthroposophy? What will they answer? Maybe in Dornach it will be different, but if we ask here outside my door, outside my window, yeah, I think that I will have to go maybe more than 100 people before I reach someone who has heard or knows something about anthroposophy. So that is not a culmination of anthroposophy. There should have been 1 billion Michaelites awakened and doing, and anthroposophy should have overtaken or have inspired in a good way, should have inspired all of the areas of society. So do we hear about so much about anthroposophical medicine? Very few people in my country know about this, and maybe we have like counting in tens of doctors who know about it. And not talking. Steiner gave the seeds for every part of economy of society. What could have been if the spiritual science was taken as the basis of everything that a human does, to spiritualize the matter, to bring the spirit into our material world. And has this happened? That is what I personally don't agree with, and many people around me don't agree with. And we are working towards the words of Rudolf Steiner as we understand them. So we have to catch up for the last 100 years in the 1 year that we have. That will be the archangelic cycle of the first Christmas of the Christmas conference, right? So it will be 100 years now. So we literally have just a couple of months. I'm not saying that this is the first year that we started our work. There has been work already going on for a couple of years.
Yeah, this is also when we met in 2021 in the Holy Nights. I don't know if were you there then? I know.
No,
okay,
not in 2021.
That's when I met many of the others in the
Yeah.
group, and that was a big. I found that was fascinating because the invite, there was an invite, and I think there was me and one other from the West in this conference, which I was kind of shocked about. Apparently you had invited all of the sent invites to the main bodies and the main institutions, but seemed to be not very much interest, and I found that kind of shocking. And I thought the conference was incredible. There were people from all over Russia, Mongolia, Siberia, Ukraine, and I found this was fascinating. And yeah, I was very inspired by this, and that's it was very and then, of course, when Ingrid and many of and yourself came over these Holy Nights, the previous one, and I think that was, for me, it shows people that are willing and want to do something in their will, whether it's put on an online conference, which is a brave thing to do, and all the organization that it involves, but also to hire a bus and come out here. This was something else that I found very touching, that you at a time of war would be able to organize yourselves to get a bus over all those miles. So I was very touched. I was very touched by that. And but that's something that I think we both hope for this group is to bring more people from the West. I think that's part of what we find interesting about this whole initiative, to do a first class for people from different countries, and specifically people from the West, because I think especially at this time when everything's falling again into conflict, what better time to try and work on some kind of spiritual initiative together, also in the true sense of what Rudolf Steiner originally intended. And of course, that was going to be my next question to you. How do you see the differences between people from the East, from Ukraine, from Russia, to people in Europe and further over to the USA?
Mm-hmm.
Big
Well,
question.
it's a question that we can talk about for many hours, but I guess there was a very illustrative example when we had our first meetings. There's a very different attitude to time, right? So to how long we need to first the duration of the meetings themselves, that one needs some time to ascend to certain spiritual connections and so forth. So the meetings are longer, and also,
so just to clarify, that's like when you at the beginning there's a musical part,
right,
which helps us make a transition into a kind of different kind of listening and different kind of openness. And then there's also a kind of liturgical part. Would you agree with that, calling it liturgical?
Yes, for sure. This is very ceremonial part. It is consciously built channels which are needed for the spiritual, beings, for spiritual content to descend, to be accessed. I don't know whether we ascend or it descends, or maybe it's two-way process. And for that, you need a lot of, ceremonial, so some space that is structured. So we always keep a specific structure to our space, and it's very deliberate. It's very thought through, because when we build in material world, you can see it, and when we build in the spiritual world, it's all through the power of clear thinking. This is something that, anthroposophy is all about. You build, you construct on the foundations, on the basis of a clear thought. And that we have found that has helped significantly to elevate the space, and to feel the presence. We invite the spiritual beings into the space. We connect, we consciously build this this connection. We make that effort. So there is a lot of liturgical elements that you are right about.
It's interesting, because from the I'm calling it the West. I'm not sure I'm happy with that description, but from people from Europe, America, I think I think sometimes we struggle to be patient, to wait and to listen and to have this sense of the ceremonial and a different sense of time. And I think it's very good for us to learn this. But on the other hand, we have to recognize that our spirit wants to immediately get involved and discuss and get people to present themselves and to come into discussion. And so that I've heard this from a lot of people. It's like, well, I only have an hour. I need to come in, I need to ask a few questions, and then I need to go because I've got other things to do. And I think part of the learning process is that we both learn from each other, that both sides learn from this, that we can learn to give more space to something. Because I think it's lovely that we do have 3 or 4 hours for this, to really appreciate the different parts of what we're doing. And on the other hand, in our organization, we have to take on other people's feedback that perhaps not everyone has 3 or 4 hours, and to give space so that we can have time when we can have very active, direct discussion of the class lessons, and also questions about the mantras and things like this. So it's a balancing of both spirits.
Yeah, and I think we learn a lot also from you, and I think it's good for us, for example, to also have a little bit of that attitude, to make not to go into some extreme, I guess. So that what you are saying, I think we are also kind of working on that side of ourselves. So definitely there is mutual enrichment, I would say. And maybe what's one of the side effects of our meetings would be that we will find that middle, we will realize where we both stand, and maybe we can bring people closer together, because it's not just the language barrier, but sometimes it's the cultural, right, that prevents each other from understanding. So that
understanding would be one of the good side effects.
That one of the good side effects. That's true, in a good sense of the word.
So I've got my list of questions here. What are your hopes for the future and the future of this initiative?
That is also a question I can talk about for longer time. But if I need to summarize, it would be the changes in society. Of course, what I mentioned in the beginning, what drives us is the landscape of the world, or the picture of the world where anthroposophy has happened and where anthroposophy has culminated. So really, I would like to see a threefold society. I would like to see the continuous education, and education done in Waldorf way, where you discover the knowledge and not just being fed information. I would, see a society where people help each other, feel for each other, and all of that happens through developing the qualities that the first class gives you. So finding the 3 beasts inside every one of us, facing them, and not killing them, but what was the word, like domesticating them. Because
taming.
That's a very good word. That's the one I was seeking for. Taming them and putting them to good service. But
so this in general, I think, is a huge question. Also in modern day times, about psychology, about people recognizing what they project onto others, when we demonize another, because we don't recognize something in ourselves, and we say, oh, the evil is outside. And this is one of the very topical and relevant aspects of the first class, with the 3 beasts, the 3 aspects of the doppelganger, that all of us in modern society need to learn very much. And I think we see this in a heightened way at times of war or propaganda, where you have one country is demonized because you have to mobilize everybody to fight this evil other, instead of coming back, like you said, to questions for all of us about how does society look. And I don't think anyone is exempt for this, neither Russia or America or Ukraine or Europe. No one is exempt from this, because conflict is a product of the system that we have. And so I very much agree with you. And I think that these questions of social threefolding is again something that is 100 years after. It is 100 years after the time when Steiner tried to bring these things in, at the time of the after the First World War, around the Treaty of Versailles, and how determining that was for the 20th century. And I think one thing I felt that had much too little coverage in anthroposophical circles was the mirroring of 1920, which is 1919, 1920 was when the Treaty of Versailles came in and formed how Europe would develop after the First World War, and ended up leading to another world war. And how this mirrors in 2020 with the whole pandemic across the whole world. So I think certainly that people carry this question, I think, is incredibly important.
Yes, I do agree with you. And also in everyday life, what would happen if each one of us is liturgic and ceremonial in our everyday life, when we can live our everyday life more in connection with our inner self? What would our families look like? What would our relationship with neighbors look like? What would, the society look like if everyone was acting like this? Because, every thing that we do throughout our day is a spiritual being. And if you feel that connection or focus, even have this as a frame of your mind when you cook food, the spiritual being of lunch, the spiritual being of vegetables, then remembering what vegetables do for you, and all of the other things, even so all of the world around us is full of content that can constantly help us see the actual meanings of things that are around us. Even when you are washing the dishes, this is a spiritual process, because you're purifying something. And
Yeah.
even
this is something I think we can very much, this is something I think to learn from from the East, something very much that we've kind of lost, the church traditions that we have, and then we import things like Buddhism. And I mean, for me, this is how I refound a ceremonial connection, spiritual connection. And this is what I came to even before anthroposophy, was a connection to India, to Asia. And it's what comes from the East, is this connection to the spirit. And for me, this is invaluable, that you have some form of liturgical or ceremonial aspect of your life. And for me, it was then always incense and a little Ganesh, and because I had this connection. Well, I've always had this deep love of India, and so the Indian and Tibetan Buddhism and things like this. And I mean, beautifully, instead of going down that route, I then found how Rudolf Steiner connects this to the whole esoteric development of Christianity, and that brought all those things together. So luckily I could have both, in a very lovely way. But I think that's certainly something that we I think even Steiner spoke about it at one point, about how the West is it's the West's relation to death, and how he advises that or speaks about how the British, the Anglo-American folk, the peoples of those from those geographical areas would go to Asia for a kind of rebirth to find their spirit. And certainly this whole question of, you know, the British out in India and the whole heritage of the British Empire and things like this. I think if you read Rudyard Kipling and, you know, certainly I always felt that, you know, my grandpa was also out there in the war. And there's this strange relationship, you know, between the East and Asia and how humanity in history develops, how those things fructify each other. And okay, it's been kind of Anglo-American dominance, but the future still speaks, and the future speaks, you know, through these other parts of the world that we, especially, you know, in school, all of our education is focused on America, Britain, a little bit of France, you know, and then everything east of the Rhine, and even Germany, which is relatively close, but everything east of the Rhine is you don't hear much about. And it's only through the work that we've done recently that, you know, I'm looking on the map. Where is this sounds very ignorant, but where is Moldova? Where is Ukraine? Where is Georgia? And you see then that, okay, this is the education of the victor. You see that
probably
it's fascinating,
part of karma there. That's one thing. And another thing that fascinates me, I mean, you mentioned the word fractalizing. So I also have friends who travel to India. My yoga teacher, when I was living in the UK, also, you know, was educated there for yoga and so forth. But what happened is that people go to India and they live certain life, and then they like close the door and they return and they continue with their old self, you know, well, maybe a little bit, you know, have a little bit of incense and that and this, but you basically don't change anything about yourself. So, and it's the way, in a way, something that I see in anthroposophy yourself. So people go into groups, study something, and then they close the door and they can, you know, go and be rude to their neighbor or, you know, scold their child, or, you know, it's maybe extreme examples, but I hope you understand what I'm, you know, talking about. This.
Yeah, it's kind of like Sunday, just like such. What do they say? What's that expression? Something like church is just for Sundays or something.
Yeah, that's the spirit.
A Sunday anthroposophist or something like this. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, and that's what also we want to work on, that, you know, anthroposophy is in life, and that I think there was even this scene from Steiner, from one of the books, like, you know, about this clerk who goes to listen Steiner's lectures, and then he's so delighted and everything is beautiful, and then they go back and they adjust their old self with all the beasts and all the, you know, zoo inside acting, instead of the person true self. That's
there's this you know, I've been thinking about this a lot recently, because after 2020, it's also interesting coming on to also to the question of money. Yeah, because I remember, you know, 2020 happened and I thought, you know, what kind of world is this, you know, where you get locked up in your house? And it brought many questions. And then, you know, I went self-employed a while back and had a very small pension fund, and I had to go self-employed. I got this paid out. Yeah. And so it just sits in the bank. Yeah. And so I continually, for me, this raises questions, because I'm not happy with how that bank invests its money. I have no belief in what the way this system runs, with to the benefit of a privileged few and to the detriment of a lot. And I don't see any particularly progressive ideas in that whole world. And I would like some other way to bring to do something with that money, with my life as well. And I would like that to be informed by anthroposophy. And I think that's also part of this, of our will in this group coming together, is that we are seeking to do something together. And I think many people have this feeling now, or have done in the last 2 years, if we don't do something together now, well, then everything will be managed by AI systems or digital systems or the World Economic Forum or the United Nations, and every part of your life will be determined. Now, some people will say, okay, that's fine. I quite like that. I sit at home and have my internet and my games and my music and my food. But I don't feel that that is in any way what anthroposophy, certainly anthroposophy is, or what Rudolf Steiner intended. I don't think it has anything to do with that, because it should be about one's own active will. And I think that's certainly what drove me to come and meet you guys at that conference 2 years ago. And certainly in this initiative that we've done recently, is to say, I'm not going to sit and let these events just passively wash over me.
Exactly. And the thing is that we do have a lot of instruments that we don't realize we do have, because everything that is going on here is, the joint acts of Lucifer and Ahriman. And we know that they do not represent the prevailing power in the universe. There are just a couple of I forget this word in English, but they have kind of fallen out from the development, right? They stayed on the previous stage, so they can help a human being to find its freedom, right? So when you're talking about staying at home, having your games, and is that what the person was born to do? That's not something that anyone was born to do. They were born to build their world around us to have to live the life as as you want to. And the thing is that we have been hypnotized into thinking that the world is as material as it is, and it cannot be changed. Well, it can be changed, and all the institutions and the UN they're not defining how things will be. It's the free will of a person that is defining how it will be and what will happen. We just don't know it, and we have to, it's even in this verse of the 51st week. Wait, I have only the German translation in front of me. But the what it's saying that we need to unravel.
In German.
Wait, just to pull it in front of me. Dass seine Kraft aus ihm sich neu erschaffen muss. So we can create a new and wait. So this is the sort of the additional meanings that we when we working on the disenchant, that's the word. When we work on the calendar of the soul, we also reach some additional meanings that we consider that are sort of beneath the surface in the calendar of the soul. And here we are talking about this disenchantment of of the forces that are enchanted around us, and we think that, you know, if there are banks or institutions or, you know, Federal Reserve or any, that they are defining the world. No, they're not defining the world. And if we work with the higher hierarchies, pursuing their the legitimate evolutional development of humanity, and then what we are doing will be reinforced by the spiritual beings, by much mightier beings than Ahriman and Lucifer, who has, you know, created this, which is obviously not working very well, as we all understand. So we just need to apply the forces of the higher hierarchies to change this. But to do this, we need to awaken our power. Everyone is sleeping, and the world is ruled by the sleeping willpower. So when people don't do anything, this is what is happening. And what we are trying to do is by working with higher hierarchies. It's not just, you know, the human, the person with their devices that can, you know, act and, you know, win against these two. But we can be like the representative of the humanity, and by balancing between the two power, just disenchant and exercise our true power that we do have. So then no one will be ruling, nor IMF, nor UN, or anyone in you know, between those.
Yeah, I think it's a really important point to come back.
I might need to go soon because I need to, yeah, be somewhere at
okay, sure. I was just going to put in the, I was just going to come to this 51st verse, but what I shall do is put it in the in the
turn off
text
the camera
the
just for a moment. I need to help my mother with something, but I'm here and listening. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll put it on the text underneath the video. And anyway, you still there, Olga?
Yeah, I'm here. I just needed to, my mom has broken her arm, so I needed to zip for her. Yeah.
It's all right. I won't hold you up any longer. But I'll put it in the, I'm gonna put the text for the 51st week in the text underneath.
Okay.
And then I'll also put the link into the Facebook group where we post invites to the group.
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, anyone who wants to come along, we're opening this up to anyone who wants to join us, and anyone who wants to also get involved in the organization. Very much about collaboration and being open to what you and what others have to give. So, and just coming back to that last point, I think it's very important to remember that what we're looking to do is not just online, because we're looking to do also initiatives that can blossom out of this, you know, so whether that's meeting up in person or founding initiatives and travel and things like this. It's very much about engaging one's will, and we should also remember sitting on a Zoom call is also an activation of one's will. I know there's a lot of
do it. What we do during that time.
There's a lot of demonization that goes on about the digital world, but I think it's, in terms of organization and in terms of sharing ideas, I think it's been a very interesting and fascinating process to engage in this whole first class thing as a group in endeavor. And yeah, so those are my closing thoughts. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we finish up?
No, I think you said it all. We are open, and we invite anyone who wants to participate, contribute, be part of the organization, or just even to soak the contents, to submerge into that true wealth, as is the calendar of the souls, the theme of this week, the wealth. Anyone who wants to go and submerge themselves into the content of the Frist Class, even to listen, that would be a very big step forward.
Yeah, and it's certainly possible. People can come along and listen for some time. There is an official entry, but this is up to you when one decides if they want to become an official member. But certainly people can come along and meet us and talk to the group, and yeah. Good.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Olga.